I'm not saying as Christians, religious people in general. Let me share a little bit about, for example, Colombia. 82%. That's my country, my home country. Let me share about Australia. 34%. So when we say these numbers, it is very interesting. So let me share where the US is. It's 56%. Now, when we compare the population of Colombia versus the population of the US, the population of Colombia is 45 million people. It's 45 million. What's the population of the US? Around 300 million. What's the population of South Korea? Can somebody tell me that number? No? Close? Now, try to see that this way. From that percentage I shared with you, there is less percentage of people who are committed in religious activity. So it means that it is different to be a religious people versus being religiously involved. And that's why I'm saying we need to learn how to interpret the signs of the times. Because Sadducees and Pharisees in Jesus' times, they didn't understand why Jesus was doing everything he was doing. Because he was proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God, he was healing, he was bringing a new life for those who believe in him. Today, we have challenges among the religious world. Because there are many religions, there are some religious people, but there are many differences between being a religious people and being a follower of Jesus Christ. Many religious today, they know who Jesus Christ is, or at least they have read about him. What's the difference between them and us? The difference is that we have a relationship with Christ. When we have a relationship with Jesus Christ, our vision changes through the presence of the Holy Spirit. And that's why the Cumberland Presbyterian Church here in the U.S. especially, because we are an international denomination, the Cumberland Presbyterian Church had a vision. Because many immigrants from different countries around the world were coming to live in the U.S. Something that you and me have in common is that English is not my first language. English is not my first language. How many of you are immigrants? How many of you were born in South Korea or outside the U.S.? That's another thing we have in common. I'm not originally from the U.S. I am from Colombia, South America. However, the Lord brought us to this country to accomplish His will. So, I want to ask you a question. Why did you decide to start a Korean congregation here in the U.S.? There is no other reason. It is because God gave you that vision. So as Cumberland Presbyterians, we believe that our task today, our presbyterial task, is try to outreach those immigrant communities here in the U.S. Why? Because as I said before, when you see those numbers, 56% of the American people see themselves as religious people. 56%. And according to these numbers, it looks like those numbers are declining. And now, when you see out of those 56%, it says that 65% of that 56 are committed with their religion here in the U.S. In terms of Christianity, 65% of those who said are Christians are really committed with Christianity. It means that cross-cultural immigrants from different nations who are Christians and are coming to live in this country are bringing a fresh and new expression of Christianity for this country. Let me tell you more. One of our challenges as cross cultures today is how we can deal with second and third generations. Because they are familiar with our culture, our home country culture, but now they are also very familiar with the American culture and language. So they are in a kind of limbo, where they belong to us and also belong to the American society, and they are developing a new expression of Christianity, and we need to pay attention to that. So we need to learn to read the signs of the times. When we define culture, it says that it is an organized system of values, attitudes, beliefs, and meaning that are related to each other and to the context. One of the challenges for me is to speak in English. Why? Because English is not my first language. However, if you ask me to preach in Spanish, I will be glad to do it. If you ask me to visit a Latino family and pray for them, it will be easier for me. If you want me to start a Bible study group, it will be easier for me to do it in Spanish. Why? Because I'm familiar with the culture. That's why you are pastors of Korean churches. Because God created you as a Korean person, and God is calling you to serve among Koreans. But not only that. The term cross-culture in the context of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church refers to the presbytery's duty in the U.S. to outreach among immigrant people. What does it mean? That the presbyteries here in the U.S. are predominantly Anglo presbyteries. What's the main language? English. But for an Anglo person, it is very, very difficult to outreach and try to serve a Korean community when you are not familiar with the language, when you are not familiar with the culture. And even for me as a Colombian, if you ask me to be a pastor of a Korean church or church, that church will become a Korean Latino church. But that's not our goal. The Cumberland Presbyterian Church and the vision, and again, the reading the signs of times, is pushing our presbyteries to say, no, we need pastors, we need Korean pastors to serve among the Korean communities. Why? Because you, as a Korean, you know where the Koreans are, where the Korean communities are located. Where is a good place to start a congregation, because there is a large community of Korean people here. What's the population of Korean here in Atlanta? Over 150, around 150,000, something like that? That's a large number. That's why this area is good to plant Korean churches. It is the same with other cultures. It means that the Anglo Presbytery decided, no, it is time to call ministers, Cumberland Presbyterian ministers from different nationalities, to serve in their own culture, among their own people. The amazing thing that is happening, and that's something personal, I believe that the U.S. is becoming a global country. And when I said a global country, it is global is not only economics. That's part of the experience, because we come here and we need to support our family financially. But it is more than that. People from different religions, people from different cultures are coming to live here in the U.S. If our call is to share the good news to all human beings, the advantage we have here in the U.S. is that we have all immigrants coming here. People from different religions have shared with us that they found a relationship, a real relationship with Jesus Christ while they were starting to live here in the U.S. I know some Colombians that they said, When we were living in Colombia, no religion. There were no religion. There was no religion. But when we came to the U.S., we found that there was a community of faith who shared with us the good news of Jesus Christ. And then we transformed our life through that relationship, through the power of the Holy Spirit. That's key for us. That's key for us as Cumberland Presbyterians today. So today, 14 out of 19 presbyteries here in the U.S. have at least one cross-culture ministry. It means that at least one outreach among a different culture, a different nationality, is within the boundaries of a presbytery. We have, at this point, I think the largest group, and you can be proud of that, it is the Korean group, the Korean ministries. There are around 20 to 22 different Korean ministries among the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Here in the U.S., I'm talking here in the U.S. One out of 19 presbyteries is a Korean presbytery. It is the first cross-cultural presbytery. It means that now the Cumberland East Coast Korean Presbytery has this task of sharing the good news, maybe to a different cultures. One cross-cultural presbytery. The second largest group is the Latino group, and I prefer to call them the Gentiles of the 21st century. Do you know why? Because when you talk about Latinos, you're talking about more than 18 different nationalities. I mean that you are dealing with at least 18 different cultures in one church. And that's challenging. It is different to have a Korean church because everybody in that church is a Korean. When you have a Latino congregation, it means that you need to deal with different cultures. Even when we speak the same Spanish, the same language, we don't understand each other very well. Because we use different ways to express our language. Because it is also cultural. It means that it is challenging, but it is the second largest group in the U.S. It is we have around 18 to 19, almost 20 Latino groups, ministries here in the U.S. We have one Japanese ministry in Louisville, Kentucky. It started as a new church development, but now it will be organized in this upcoming fall, and they will be organized as the first Japanese congregation in the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. The oldest church or cross-cultural church is the Chinese church that is located in San Francisco, and it is over 100 years old because it started in 1894. That outreach started at that time, and it is a good model for us, the rest of the cross-cultural groups, because the nature of the spiritual and numerical growing has been transformed through the experience of being for a long time. It means that it started as a Chinese church with worship services in Cantonese, Mandarin, but now they have worship services in English. Why? Because second, third, fourth, fifth generation, they became part of the congregation. They remained in the congregation. Why? Because they were ministered. They were a minister. There was a minister ministered these people. So that's our challenge for our future. When we see the vision of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, when we see what's the vision for the Korean churches, how do you project your church in 20 years? That's a good question. I don't want to be negative. Maybe some of you will not be present at that time. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe I cannot see the future. But the vision is there. Maybe in 20 years, somebody will be sharing about how the Korean ministers are growing. Not only numerically, but spiritually. Changing and transforming the American society. That's our goal. We have also some African groups. we have Liberian, Sudanese, and some of those are outreach. So at this time, Dr. Kim is witness of that, and Reverend Thomas here. Maybe over 16 years ago, you had a dream. You had a dream to start Korean churches or cross-culture churches. The program of the cross-culture ministries started in the U.S. with the purpose of sharing the good news of Jesus Christ to all those different nationalities and to show the love of God. And one way to do it is through planting new churches. That's the way. So 16 years ago, Dr. Kim, how many Korean churches we had? 3 churches. 3 churches versus 22. 16 years later. That is the meaning of reading the signs of time. 33. This is the largest group. It means that that's the meaning of reading the signs of times. How you're reading those signs of time. We need you to discern the vision of God at this moment, today, in this society. Let me share a little bit about what this program does. Missions Ministry Team is the team in charge of all missions. And when we talk about all missions, remember that the Great Commission is sharing the good news, right? And the Missions Ministry Team is in charge of programming and having projects that can help the congregations and the denomination itself to share the good news. So we provide tools, we provide resources, and we provide assistance to our presbyteries and to our congregations while we serving cross-culture ministries. So we provide guidelines and resources for formation of new church development task forces within our presbyteries. It provides mission designs regarding what could be a good plan for planting a new church in one particular setting or one particular area. We provide funding and supervision, and at this time we have a partnership. We're working in partnership with some presbyteries where the presbyteries are funding and providing supervision to a specific new church development. And Missions Ministry Team, our team, is also providing some supervision and some financial resources. So at this moment, we have over 47 cross-culture ministries. We provide demographic studies, and you know that among cross-culture groups is different, because if we want to start a Korean congregation, we need to explore those areas where Korean communities are located. So we help with that kind of resources, and also part of this program is help those pastors and congregations that are not Cumberland Presbyterians, but they have the desire of becoming Cumberland Presbyterians. So we help in this process of assimilation. We help those congregations and presbyteries who are interested on receiving those churches to start a process of 2 years where they can meet each other, know more about who this congregation is, what this congregation is doing, and what the Cumberland Presbyterian looks like. So it is a reciprocal relationship, and we assist presbyteries doing this. So part of my job is to serve as a liaison between the different presbyteries and the different cross-culture ministries. And that includes the provisioners, the ministers, the new church, it's new church development, and even the organized congregations. So something different we do as cross-culture pastors. Maybe I'm sharing from the Latino perspective. When you become a minister working among different Korean groups, for example. A pastor, a regular pastor becomes a social worker, right? Because if a new Korean comes to live here in the US, you're trying to help that person to find a job. You become a specialist regarding health, insurances, and health, good places where people can go when they're sick. You become legal consultants because you become familiar with all those legal issues and challenges, and you provide those kind of assistance to our people. So that experience, that kind of experience is part of our call today. And sometimes for the presbyteries, it's confusing to understand or to help cross-cultural groups when they don't understand all the struggles and challenges we face. So we are trying to help the presbyteries to understand why some specific things among Koreans or cross-cultural groups happen regularly. Because we are still living here as immigrants, and we face challenges, but also we have rights. So we are learning, and that's why my office offers that service of being a cell liaison. And the great blessing I have is that Dr. Kim has been since the beginning. So he is our consultant among Korean ministries, not only here in the US, but also contacting and sharing news about potential new churches outside the continental USA. I share this a little bit. There are more than 15 different nationalities represented in our cross-cultural churches today. And the youngest presbytery. And this is something, if you don't know, maybe you need to take note of that. The youngest presbytery. When I said that, it is that since 1988, this one, the East Coast Korean Presbytery, is a new formed presbytery. And it started in 2013, 2012. Sorry. And that's amazing because, can you imagine, since 1988, one presbytery was formed, and it wasn't an Anglo presbytery. It was a Korean presbytery, reading the signs of the times. So, if God is calling you or calling somebody from your congregation, from your area, if you are familiar with a pastor who is interested in becoming a Cumberland Presbyterian, we are more than glad to assist you and help as much as they can. Our consultant is Dr. Kim, so if you want to share with him those kind of potential opportunities, please do it. Do it. We will be glad to help as much as we can. So, we have a copy of the brochure explaining what the cross-cultural ministry is. And I want to encourage you to take more than one. We have, right there, we have some, like 100 or something like that. If you want to bring some with you to share with others, that's a good way. And the other good thing is that reading the Signs of Time also is teaching us that we need people in our office, denomination, who are able to assist the different cultures that are represented here in the US. So we have the great blessing of having Yuli Min, who is helping us in our office within missions ministry team. So she is helping us to translate our resources. So if you need to call to the center, and if you don't feel that your English, no, you prefer to speak in Korean, yeah, we have a person who can assist you when you're trying to contact us. So even if you feel more comfortable sending an email to us in Korean, that's not a problem anymore. because we have somebody there who is willing to help us, and she is a wonderful person helping the team in general. So, is there any question regarding the cross-cultural ministries here in the U.S.? I promised Dr. Kim that my presentation, it was taking 30 minutes. So, thank you so much for your time.
요한 다자 목사님 감사합니다. 우리 곧바로 하는 게 좋겠죠. 네, 우리 해외선교국장이신 린 토마스 목사님, 또 꼭 필요한 말씀, 꼭 필요한 아마 여러 가지 정보를 우리에게 제공하지 않을까 싶습니다. 우리 나오실 때 박수로 환영하겠습니다.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Thomas, and I remember some of you from a long time ago. We used to work together. It was such a joy to be here in Atlanta and other parts of the United States and work with our Korean pastors and Korean ministries. So it's good to see you again. I now work with our global missions part of the church. In the past I did what Johan did, but for the past several years I've been working with our mission work outside of the United States. I'd like to take some time this morning to tell you what we're doing outside the United States. Let me define for you what a missionary is, because every church and every mission agency seems to have a different definition. The definition we're using is one that actually comes from a missionary specialist called Ralph Winters. Our missionary definition is a person that crosses cultures to share or demonstrate the love of Christ to other people. You have to cross a culture in the Common Presbyterian Church to be classified as a missionary. For instance, normal evangelism or outreach is M0, M1. That's when you reach out to your family, you reach out to your Korean friends, and you reach out to people that are very similar to you. So you don't have to learn how to eat different food, or learn a new language, or learn a new dance, or learn any new cultural things, because you're sharing your faith with people that are very similar to you. We call that evangelism and outreach. But when you begin to share the good news of Christ with people who are different than you, share the good news of Christ with Hispanics, or Cambodians, or Chinese, or Japanese people, now you're crossing a culture, a cultural barrier. And that's when we classify a person in the Common Presbyterian Church as a missionary. They have to leave their culture and go to a new culture. So, the reason that is important is because we are an international global church. And that definition of crossing cultures helps us understand who is a missionary in the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Look at this. We have Colombians that work in Guatemala. They are Cumberland Presbyterian Colombians, and they are missionaries in Guatemala. We have Cumberland Presbyterian Koreans that work in Cambodia. We have North Americans that work in Hong Kong. We have Colombians that work in Mexico. And we have Americans that work in Colombia. South Korea can be not only a mission field in the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, but it can also be a source of missionaries. Because if a person from, let's say, the United States or Japan goes to South Korea to share the good news of Christ, then they're a missionary because they cross cultures. At the same time, a Korean that leaves South Korea and goes to the Philippines or to Cambodia, that person is also a missionary because they have crossed cultures. That's the way we define missionaries in an international church. You leave your culture and go to another culture, and all of these people, the one thing they have in common is they're all Cumberland Presbyterians. So, to be a missionary, you have to adapt to a new culture, and you often have to learn a new language as part of that. We have 5 Cumberland Presbyterian missionaries that work with non-denominational mission organizations. These are missionaries that are on loan to other mission agencies. They are Cumberland Presbyterian, but they work for a different mission organization that's not part of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. You see, in B, we don't put her name up there because for security reasons, we don't want to publicize who this person is. She is a missionary in China working with Campus Crusade. We have T, T, and G. That's a couple. They live in Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is a communist and Muslim country, and they use an egg production company as their means of evangelism. They have a bunch of chickens that lay eggs, and then they have distributors who are Christians who take those eggs all over Kyrgyzstan and sell the eggs and also share their faith in Jesus Christ. And then we have Kenneth and Delight Hobson, and you see their names there because Uganda is a country that's open to the gospel, so they don't have to be a clandestine or a secret missionary. They live in Uganda, and Kenneth works with a printing office where he prints Christian materials for different organizations in Africa. These are 5 missionaries, husbands and wives, and a single lady, who work with non-denominational mission organizations. Now we have 14 Cumberland Presbyterian missionaries that are developing Cumberland Presbyterian churches. And these are the different countries they're in. They're in Mexico, they're in Guatemala, they're in Colombia, Hong Kong, Laos, Cambodia, and the Philippines. That's where our different missionaries are working around the world. Now we have more mission work around the world, but that's where our missionaries are located. Let me show you what each one is doing. We have Carlos and Luz Dottie. They are from Colombia, South America, from our churches in Colombia, South America, and they are missionaries in Mexico City. As you may know, because Mexican food and Korean food have some similarities, Mexican food is very hot, very spicy. And as Johan can tell you from Colombia, Colombians do not eat spicy food. So, not everybody that speaks Spanish likes spicy food, and Carlos and Luz Dottie don't like spicy food. So they've had to get used to eating very spicy food in Mexico. There are currently 6 Cumberland Presbyterian churches in Mexico. And Carlos and Luz Dottie are working with those churches to help them become good, strong Cumberland Presbyterian churches, as well as start new churches in Mexico. I was just in Mexico City 2 days ago. I just got back very recently from working in a conference there. And the churches there are very excited, very enthusiastic about the future and what they see happening in Mexico. Both Carlos and Luz Dottie are Cumberland Presbyterian ministers. Both of them are ordained ministers. Anaya Ortega is a layperson. She is not a pastor. She is also from Colombia, South America, and she lives and works in Guatemala City. Anaya is single, and she does evangelism and outreach in Guatemala. We have 3 churches, and we'll soon have a 4th church in Guatemala, and she visits those churches and helps with leadership development. Now, Anaya went to Guatemala about 6 years ago when we had nothing, 0 churches. She landed in the airport in Guatemala City all by herself, and she did not know anybody. And she had to find her way out of the airport and find a way to stay and take care of herself without knowing anyone in Guatemala. And she did that. And she has been there now for almost 6 years. And we have her there as well as some other missionaries I'm going to introduce you to. And they are growing the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Guatemala. We also have a medical clinic in Guatemala, and we take care of people through that medical clinic in Guatemala City. Fine Honor and Socorro Pinandino are also missionaries in Guatemala, and they are pastors from Colombia, South America. Both of them were ordained Cumberland Presbyterian ministers. They went to Guatemala about a year and a half ago, and they are helping develop new Cumberland Presbyterian churches. They're doing evangelism and outreach, and also doing leadership development. That is, training people there to be future pastors and future leaders. We have Boyce and Beth Wallace. They are from the United States originally. They have been serving in Colombia, South America for 52 years. They are the longest serving missionaries in Cumberland Presbyterian history. They live in Cali, Colombia, and Boyce is kind of retired because he's 84, 85 years old. So he does not work full-time, but he stays very involved in the ministry of the church there. He encourages the pastors, and he writes a lot of materials to help train the pastors and the leaders there in Colombia. Boyce and Beth will never return to the United States. They will stay in Colombia, and that's where they will die. That's what they tell us. There are two presbyteries in Colombia, the Andes and Cauca Valley presbyteries, and between those two presbyteries, there's probably about 60 churches and mission points, as well as 3 schools and a senior citizens home to take care of elderly people that need care. We have David and Sarah Lee, who are from South Korea. They are missionaries in Cambodia and Laos. David and Sarah Lee live in Laos, and they travel to Cambodia with great frequency. There is a Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Laos, and there is a Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Cambodia, and we started a new church about 3 months ago in Cambodia that has already doubled in size in just 3 months. It started with 30, and now they have over 60 in attendance on Sunday. We're in the process of buying a church building in Cambodia, and that should be even happening as we are speaking today. They are in the process of trying to finish the real estate deal and secure the property and put the building on it for a church. Currently they're renting, and that's what they're using for their worship space in Cambodia. The church in Cambodia has about 160 on Sunday, and the church in Laos has about 40 on Sunday. And these are some of the leaders that they're training, Cambodians and Laos. And David and Sarah have done a very good job with leadership development in both of these countries. Glenn Watts is a missionary. He is a lay person, and he is working in Hong Kong. We have 10 Cumberland Presbyterian churches in Hong Kong, and Glenn is working in one of those churches to develop an English-speaking worship service for the international community there. We have Daniel and Kate Chang, who are missionaries in Iloilo, Philippines. There are now 4 churches that we're working with in Iloilo, Philippines, because there's a new church that was just added. And they are doing church planting and leadership development in the Philippines. They flew to South Korea, I think today. They're going to be spending a few weeks in South Korea, and then they'll be going back to the Philippines. They are from South Korea. And I think you may recognize these people. This is John and Joy Park. They are our newest missionaries that will be going to the Philippines, and they're currently trying to raise support so that they can go also to Iloilo, Philippines, and be involved in church planting and leadership development when they are able to get to the Philippines. So they are also considered part of our missionary family, and they are still not ready to go to the Philippines until they have enough money in place that they can go. Now I want to show you our mission work so you can see how it is growing and how large it is. We have almost 7,000 active members in our presbyteries. In Colombia, we have 2 presbyteries. In Japan, we have a presbytery. Hong Kong, we have a presbytery. And in the United States, we have many presbyteries. But the presbyteries outside of the United States, there are 4, and we have almost 7,000 active Cumberland Presbyterians outside the United States in these 4 presbyteries. Let me say something about Columbia. Columbia says they have over 4,000 active Cumberland Presbyterian church members. If you go to a Cumberland Presbyterian church in Columbia, you will see in the directory, the yearbook, that it says there are 100 active members in that church. But you will see on Sunday morning there will be 150 people there. Always in Columbia, the active member number is much smaller than the actual number of people who attend that church. So if we say there are 4,000 active church members in Columbia, there are really probably 6,000 that are attending church on Sunday. So the numbers of attendees are much larger than the actual church numbers. That's not true in America. In the United States, if you say you have 100 church members, that means on Sunday you're going to have about 60 to 70 people in church. It's always a lower number than the actual church membership number. So we have 7,000 Cumberland Presbyterians that are active. We have 4 councils of churches. These councils are new organizations that are helping develop a future presbytery. We have one in Guatemala, one in Mexico, one in the Philippines, and one in South Korea. We have 725 participants in those 4 councils. And then we have CP churches in Cambodia, Laos, and Brazil, and there's approximately 235 participants in those churches. So 17.5% of all Cumberland Presbyterians live outside the United States. And that number is growing. If you include the Koreans and the Hispanics that live in the United States, you have over 25, almost 25% of all Cumberland Presbyterians whose first language is not English, it's some other language. So the Cumberland Presbyterian Church is truly an international, integrated church. We have many ministries outside the United States that are not necessarily affiliated with a missionary. As I said, we have 2 presbyteries, Andes and Cauca Valley presbyteries. There are 40 organized churches and probably over 20 mission points in Columbia, so over 60 congregations. We have 3 schools. One of the schools has 1,500 students and 180 employees. That's where General Assembly will be held this summer in Cali, Columbia, at one of the schools. In Hong Kong, we have 10 churches, Cumberland Presbyterian churches. We have 3 schools. Some of those schools, 2 of those schools have a value of over $30 million each. They're huge, large schools that are run by the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. One is an elementary school, another is a high school. Joe Hunt and I, a year or so ago, we were in Hong Kong working in one of these high schools, working with the students there. In Japan Presbytery, we have 14 Cumberland Presbyterian churches. They have 2 kindergartens, and they have over 1,250 active church members. One of the largest Protestant churches in Japan is a Cumberland Presbyterian church. And then we have Cumberland Presbyterian councils in South Korea, which has 4 small churches. We have actually 6 churches in Mexico. We have, now it's 4 churches in Guatemala in the council, and we have 4 churches in the Philippines. How do we support our missionaries? We use the Stott Wallace Missionary Support Fund. The word Stott comes from Beverly and Buddy Stott. They were missionaries in Japan for 26 years. Buddy has since died several years ago. And Boyce and Beth Wallace, who were missionaries in Columbia for now 52 years. So we named the Missionary Support Fund after these 2 missionaries because they represent the East and they represent the West. And what we ask is that all Cumberland Presbyterians donate to the Stott Wallace Missionary Offering Support Fund so that we can use that money to pay our missionaries' salaries and their benefits. We need each year about $350,000 US just to cover the missionaries we have right now. I want you to look at this little chart here. It says if 500 Cumberland Presbyterian churches our church groups, our women's groups, our youth groups, gave just $2,000 a year, that would give us $1 million a year. And then we could recruit more missionaries and do much more mission work if we could accomplish that. As you can see, all we need is $350,000 right now. But just imagine if every church in our denomination gave $2,000 a year. That would be over $1 million. And we could expand our mission program and take care of our missionaries in incredible and great ways. If just the Korean churches in the United States were to give $2,000 each a year, just once a year, that would take care of the entire expense of Pastor Park and his wife being missionaries in the Philippines. That's all it takes. Just the Korean churches giving $2,000 a year to the Stock Wallace Missionary Offering, that would be enough money to take care of the Parks as far as missionaries working in the Philippines. We believe that it is possible that all Common Presbyterian churches can do at least that, and many can do more. We already have churches that give more than $2,000 a year, but we're trying to educate our churches, trying to help them understand the importance of supporting the Stock Wallace Missionary Offering Fund. We don't want our missionaries to have to worry about raising money. And we're hoping that once churches learn about supporting this fund, that our missionaries will be able to go to the mission field and not worry about raising money, because the money will be coming into that fund and that fund will be taking care of them.